Monica Gee, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. It's Monica G, sorry.
Cool, messed it up already. Brilliant. Off
I
to
think
a
we should
good
keep that
start.
in. We should keep that in though, right?
Yeah, as long as it humiliates me, we'll keep it in the edit, sure.
1 minute in.
I don't know how I recover from that.
It's okay, Chris. Just keep rolling. That's the lesson we've learned.
I blush about once per year. This is it.
Let's do it once, because then we can have the funny one for the blooper reel that we do at the end of the year with things. Designing Teams is a podcast drafted together by me, Kit Friend, of Accenture's Atlassian partnership team.
And me, Chris Cook, Atlassian Community Champion. We'll get a backstage look at the most daring and innovative companies through candid conversations with creative legends.
We explore how designers really work with teams, beyond the wireframes and workflows, to spark ideas, build momentum, and co-create magic. Expect tales of triumph, creative tension, beautifully chaotic collaboration, and a dash of flamingo-based estimation. Whether you're a designer, a team lead, or just wondering what happens when art meets agile, get ready, because this is about to get messy.
Amazing. Monica G, thanks for joining us. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really cool. So I understand you've done some work with government and then now you're working more in SaaS. Like, what's that transition been?
Yeah, I started off in the government as a new grad, so this was the first time I'm, exposed to the real workplace. So huge learnings. You know, you you're getting approval and stakeholders, like the minister, which is, I don't think you get that in your everyday when you're just working at a tech company, SaaS, and then transitioned to, more SaaS companies like Easy Agile today. And I think the scale of work is very different. But the fundamentals of like the ways of working, I would say, are pretty similar, especially for the team I was in. I was in the design systems team, which was a really good learning opportunity for me as a new grad going into product design. So I loved that team working with an engineer, and that's still kind of similar. It's just a different environment. But I don't know if that's the case for everyone. Might have just been lucky.
What's your role now? How do we describe you?
Uh, just a senior product designer. Good old plain simple, yeah, for a few years. So I feel like I've, uh, just gone up, worked on product design, but in different industries and I guess company sizes. So going from government to kind of like an invoicing company that was then acquired by an American accountant company. So our design team grew from like 10 people to hundreds. And that was a huge change in culture. Interesting. And then back to working for teams. Our apps are on the Atlassian marketplace as well. So yeah, it's nice learning different bits and pieces of different industries as I continue my journey.
The scaling thing is always fun, isn't it? I mean, people talk all the time about the challenges with like engineering team scaling and business team scaling, but it doesn't come up as often for designers, right? I'm really interested, like, by like what your experience there was like. Like, what was it like being in the design team beforehand, and like how did that change as you went like 10 times or more?
It was It was crazy. I think just seeing all those little faces on Zoom as well. And the team was also in America and then Australia and other countries. So it was really, working with time zones as well. But our, weekly design huddles would still just be the APAC team with 10 members that I'm familiar with. And then more of a once a month ritual. We have a whole design all hands, which is crazy because I feel like that's more of a company all hands you normally have, but it was just so big that we had one for design and it'll be a bit more high level conversations, but it was still really good to see the creativity and from people that I haven't maybe even talked to just because it's so big.
When I've seen designers work at scale, often there's a tendency to create a sort of like library of agreed approaches and things. Was that something that you found the need to do to create that feeling of consistency as you grew?
I was very top of mind for everyone. But there was A lot of things going on from the design end with a whole new design systems team restructuring, and then same as the engineering team, so a full-on restructure. So we were in that kind of midst of the change and how we navigate that. So it was important to have processes, but I feel like everyone was in the weeds of it. It's ugly at first, and then it becomes beautiful, right?
So it did eventually settle then. Like, did it eventually it become the new normal, and you got used to working on a team so big?
I think it was only around I left, I think before I could see it come to fruition.
The light was
Um,
there at the end.
yeah, but I'm hoping it did. I, I can ask my old design manager. I think he's the head of design there now, which is cool. So hopefully the work that we did contributed in some way that's made it easier for the current teams.
That feels like a very diplomatic way of summarising at the end with things. Good that it was progressing though. There, I mean, I always quite enjoy that messy beginning stage. I don't know whether that's a kind of like anyone who's worked in the creative bits. It's a bit boring once it settles, right? You sort of want the agitated kind of end of things.
So it's interesting you say that like the work you've done with government and SaaS hasn't been too different because like from the outside at least my perception would be government and a lot of sort of big institutions are traditionally slower to move and a bit more risk averse, right? And the old reputation of SaaS being build fast and break things. Do you
Yeah.
think you were a particularly funky and cool government department, or you're a particularly governmental SaaS company now?
I think I was just in a funky team. I think it was the nature of the team itself as well, which was design systems, and it was very specialized. And the government agency, I think it used to be called Digital Transformation Agency, but a lot of their processes were at the forefront of digital transformation. So we had experts coming in from everywhere to help us out. They had a great research ops team, at least for the design system. It didn't feel slow at all. I think I haven't been in that traditional team where you might have the perception that it's moving a bit slower. I'm sure it is, but I think it's very unique. I'm sure you can say the same thing for a normal SaaS company if you were in a design system team. I haven't been one. I've only experienced it in government because we didn't have a specialized design systems team at workplaces. So the speed, I don't think was as a new grad. I had nothing to compare it to as well. So
Fair enough. But also, I think with any new department or new initiative, you're often like not part of the culture, but sort of a satellite to it. So you get a different perspective from that.
yeah, yeah, shadowing.
I'm interested well with design system teams, like or like when you have like a specialized design team. I always worry that the beautiful thing you create won't be carried through like into the actual making, which in many ways is what this podcast series is about, right? It's like we've got design happening in this maybe in a silo sometimes or in a specialist team, and like how you make sure that that's carried through, but also give the people doing the work like. Enough autonomy and ownership that they don't feel like they're just being told what to do mechanistically. Like, how did you see that play out? Like, did things get implemented exactly as you'd designed the system to say, or like, what was the balance?
Um, We had a community which was really interesting. So it's a like design system community across the government. And we have kind of key contributors from different departments, and they were kind of our users as well. So there was a nice community that we got feedback from how they're using it. So I think that's such a great way to get feedback and know if the work that I'm doing is being applied properly. I think widely they're very good with having consistency, and there was a lot of effort that went into the design system. So I like that. I think hopefully most respected it, and it was just having a bit of flavor of their brand. But if there's like a new page being created and there's no good way to use the components, then the community was the place to hear that from the actual users. So I loved that kind of format.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll be the first to put a coin in the AI swear jar because I think it's interesting hearing about that community approach because I'm seeing really similar patterns in how people are trying to build AI communities in their companies because they're struggling with the same thing, right? And that if you just have one centralized team of like 8 ninjas, then you can't really make sure that that learning or perspective or governance is being rolled out properly. And so I think most of the interesting places I'm seeing it happening, they're building communities that go around that and then have that similar kind of discussion.
Yeah, super important. I think we have one going on in Easy Agile. I don't think it's like formal as per se, but there's definitely a few ninjas with AI and well, I love the Slack channels. And it's such an open place to talk about our learnings, what it does a really bad job at as well. So it's always great that yeah, everyone's learning.
And I guess contrasting those two teams and big areas you've worked with, like what do you love about Easy Agile that you lacked in the public sector context, and vice versa? Is there anything that you miss from the public sector world that's on your hit list to bring back in your world now?
I love that it's a bit more casual and loose and easy agile. Not in work, just the culture. I wasn't used to just going in to the office with like a very formal attire. But also the way of working. I think we had a again, like what I said about the ministers, there's just so many stakeholders and like the I think risk factor and the appetite to kind of mitigate the risks. Maybe not so much present in my team, but definitely on the other teams. I saw that, and so how they navigate that changes vastly. I reckon I like that in my current company and SaaS in general. I get to experiment more. Sometimes let's just get something quick and scrappy out, test it, get rapid feedback, and continue that loop to iterate. I absolutely love that, and maybe that's kind of the what we were talking about, the slow pace that it's sometimes hard. Like sometimes I just want to get something out in the hands of customers to learn and come and think out of the box and experiment. So I love that about Easy Agile right now. What I miss from government though, it wasn't my team, but I made friends and like mentors through another team for research ops, and it's crazy the amount of work and research and detail that goes into understanding a problem and creating a customer journey map, which is crazy for real problems like navigating a bushfire, how that affects everyone, and what information you need to get from the different departments. It's all scattered, and just seeing that and being able to take your time to do that level of research, definitely miss that because I don't think we don't have a dedicated researcher where yeah, hands full. So uh, that's something really cool that I admired about yeah the agency I was at.
I do love a bit of niche specialism. I remember I was working at one energy company and they were talking about it was a big asset management project, but they were just talking about the number of different data points they had about just like a pylon. And I think it was several hundred data points, including like the length of different bits of it, as well as like the normal kind of elements. And I was just like something I'd never appreciated, but it instantly made you jump towards these sorts of questions and opportunities around things. And you don't often get that opportunity to go in depth about something around things in a while, right?
Yeah, so interesting.
Um, I guess the other thing I was really interested at in your experience was when you were talking about like quick and scrappy things. I kind of love when things are a wonderful failure and something can bust you like that. And I feel particularly there's a tendency in the world of design for us to come up with something that looks great on digital or physical paper, and then we get it out to some humans and it just fails epically. Like, have you had any of those that were particularly big learning moments?
100%. It's a rite of passage. Um, every designer should go through it. And I remember all the experiments I did as a growth designer when I first joined my previous company. So I love that I've got to explore kind of the niche areas of product design as well. But growth especially, they're really quick and they're experimenting on their feet. And also you have that challenge of it's kind of hard to talk to prospect customers that you don't know. And I'm not sure if existing customers remember their journey when they first signed up, but the impact of kind of onboarding is super important for the business. But so many failures and experimentations, some just really leading into the design and fun and making it delightful. Sort of like quirky animations on our mobile app to give incentives, or having a really structured kind of get started list, trying to understand what level of information they need in their first few days of the trial. But nothing seems to stick, and it's such it was I remember just reflecting, it was such a long journey for me because I'm like, what next now? And then reevaluating the whole user journey that we know from research, talking to our ideal customers, but lots of failures, lots of learnings. But I think we got there eventually, which was good from what I can remember.
Yeah, it reminds me actually. There's a really good 99% Invisible episode about loading spinners. Again, pretty niche around things, but they talk about how Kayak was one of the first companies to go from, instead of just sitting there and you watching like a loading bar, to just telling you as the user what was happening when you were doing your travel search, and they found the stickiness and satisfaction just huge. And it was like, well, they
Yeah.
could have spent all that money on actually optimizing the behavior and trying to reduce it by like half a second, which would have cost them millions, presumably. And instead, they just went like, hey, let's just be transparent with what we're doing, and it'll give the user an appreciation around things. And they found it way more effective. And so I love that little
Yeah.
delight kind of like thing as part of good design. And that
I
was
love it. Yeah, it reminds me of another like example I read. It was about slow elevators, and just by putting in a mirror and getting everyone to, they just are so consumed with fixing their hair, looking at themselves, that it feels like faster. Just like they didn't have to buy a new elevator. It was just this, put a simple mirror. So I love, yeah, those creative ways of thinking, thinking outside of the box you might not know.
Yeah, just pander to vanity can be part of every design thing. Like, is there a way you can make human vanity part of your optimization of things? Um, but you're definitely right. And I always said, like, I think when you find something delightful in an app or a product, I feel like you can tell that the team was happy when they were making it around things.
Very excited.
Yeah, I was a Monzo Bank customer in the UK, and I just loved that there was a specific little jingly jangly bell sound they'd had mimicking coins when you transacted that would come up, and it was just like, who would bother to do that but a team that was kind of enjoying what they were doing and around there.
Your path into design wasn't a traditional one, though, right? Like, I was stalking you on LinkedIn, and
As we all do.
what were your jobs before you were a designer? Like, what was your on ramp?
Yeah. My first job was actually a tutor. And it was not the kind of traditional tutoring centers that you think of, where everyone is in one huge room and there's one teacher. It was a tutoring center where all the students are still in a big room, but they're at all different levels. So, and then there's a few tutors floating around, and whenever they need help, you go, but you don't know what they need help on because they're all at different levels. They might be doing English, the next one might be doing like advanced maths. So you got to be on your feet and try
Sounds like
to.
playing a game show on hard mode. That's incredible.
Yeah, so but it was really fun. It was really fun, and I still love, I think teaching, that was the very first experience, and it was a good opportunity for me to learn how to communicate with different people with different learning styles, and also just rowdy kids in general, and the primary schoolers. So yeah, and then after that, it's just been retail, I think. Don't know if that's on my LinkedIn, but retail and then professional within, yeah, the government agency.
Retail, I suppose you learned patience and saying the customer is always right without rolling your eyes too visibly.
Yeah. I was at Athlete's Foot. I don't know if you've both have been in Athlete's Foot, but they have a cool like technology where you can walk on it. It's like a treadmill, and it shows you what your stride is and I guess your like balance, and then recommend shoes based on those like stats. So very like giving a personalized experience. That was also cool because I had to learn that system as well. But yeah, try to find a shoe that fits perfectly. It's kind of like Cinderella.
I should stress for Chris and people who haven't interacted with Australian landscape, Athlete's Foot. I think it's a knowingly interesting name choice, but it's a trainer shop, right? Around things, right? Rather than something specialising in giving you
Yeah,
fungal infections.
yeah, I guessed, but yeah, it seems like you say, no press is bad press. So I guess they've gone controversial there.
If it makes you have a discussion about it, it's a good thing, right? I often find so. My first job was a coach at a fencing club, so sword fighting, and I always find like as an agile coach or whatever I end up calling myself each year around things. Still, a lot of my job hasn't really changed, in that a lot of it is about helping people take on things or getting into uncomfortable situations, and they're working with others, and you're like, you should just do this there. Like, do you find that there's a lot of the lessons that you took from tutoring that you still find yourself deploying now with teams of humans in a really different context?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's funny because I think as important it is to have industry experience, I'm like, go do as many jobs as you can before whilst you're in uni or in school. It exposes you to those like core fundamentals of teamwork, how to deal with a cranky boss, like those human skills. The earlier you learn them, the easier it becomes for you later on. And it's kind of the same with the tutoring and the learning styles of each child, which then change my way of teaching. So got to think on the spot, but as I kind of understand and maybe see that student for a few times, you kind of get the gist of the problems they have and how they learn the best. So kind of change it up. And same in the workplace when you're presenting work to a team or different functions like engineering, marketing, really understanding what problem they're having and what they need from you and how they best respond to that, and changing up my communication, presentation, workshop style, whatever methods are out there. But it's just understanding your audience is so crucial. And same with students, understanding your students.
I was talking about testers and quality engineers in the same way, but the designer or designers in a team often seem to be a go-between role, like a role that talks to lots of other disciplines and doing things across lots of bits of a company. A lot of it unwritten and not what you'd expect, right? But is that your experience, and has it changed between those different places that you've worked?
Yeah, it's funny because when I was in uni, I thought, if I become a product designer, I'll just be designing screens and pushing pixels and making things pretty. Whereas the reality, I think 80% is talking to people and communicating and aligning with everyone. Um, and it's a lot of the work you don't see on a screen to the customer's hand. It's just those alignment documents, workshop sessions to go through and explain the why to the team. Um, you know, all the ugly scope changes, etc. Talking with the engineers, trying to align, so that, we can change iteratively. Well, it's yeah, very different to what I expected, but it's the part I also love about it, because I think I had that experience in teaching before. And actually, when I was at my last workplace, I'll still consider myself like a junior product designer, and it was my first kind of tech role, very different from government. So I was super excited, and actually, the designers that I looked up to and were just amazing. It's not the final product, or the feature that they design. It was just how they articulated themselves when they were running through workshops and explaining what user research or usability testing they did. And I was like, wow, you're a role model. Like, how do you do it so well? Like, it has the key information, really simple terms so that everyone knows. And I feel like the skills and a senior's like toolbox comes from experience. And it was really, yeah, cool seeing that. And I look up to them a lot.
I do often wonder, like, especially as teams become more and more remote and international, multinational, but everyone's conversing in English and often just assume we're on the same page. And it's always good to have like a different cultural perspective and understand the need sometimes for context switching. And did we all understand the same thing from that meeting?
Yeah, yeah. Always check because when they say, yeah, we understand, most times there's something missing.
That's common in many cultures, though, to be
Yeah,
honest.
The lost in
Like,
translation problem, right? Yeah, like we both
uh,
can see the
yeah.
words and that makes sense, but the meaning behind them is lost.
in Thailand, they often have a meeting after the meeting. So you'll have the meeting, and then the Thais will go away and have a secondary meeting to make sure, okay, like, is everyone happy with that plan? And the boss said you should do that, but maybe given your priorities and what you're currently working on, and maybe it'd be better if that person did it. And so they would like go away and have like a collective resetting and recalibrating after the meeting, which is probably
Wow.
sensible. More teams would benefit from that.
Mm,
I'd be
maybe
interested
not.
actually in your opinion, Monica. So I really enjoyed Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, or Nike, as I now know it's properly pronounced via the book, which really upset me as an English person. But he talks a lot about his experience of trying to start the business working in Japan, and actually the flip of Chris's experience in Thailand. He talks about like the consensus building before the meeting, where the decision was meant to be happening, and having to do the rounds. I was interested, like, did you see any of that in your experience of working in Japan, albeit outside the design context?
I think one thing I struggled with a lot was the cultural nuances. So I guess that applies to if you're starting a business in Japan. I think there were a few businesses that worked really well in Australia and America, but as soon as they started it in Japan, it just flopped, and they didn't know why. But I think there's yeah a lot of cultural differences that make it very unique, and it's hard to explain. It's very hard to explain. So I think even just the way of for me, it wasn't not work related, but even making friends and having a casual conversation with someone I don't know in a class, I felt very like segregated in a way. I think maybe it's the Aussie culture that's super like they don't really care, like talk to me, whatever, and friendly vibes, whereas I think people there are just a bit more reserved. But once you crack them, it's like they're the best people ever. So trying to unlearn what I know from Australia to be a better communicator in Japan so I can actually just make one friend was probably the biggest learning that I got over there.
Yeah. And then once you cross the threshold, it's best friends for life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And whether it's Japan or just like companies, are there any like big sort of goals in your life plan? Have you like, I'd love to work here or in this discipline or this industry?
Hmm. I thought about this and I feel like I'm still early in my career and I'm a proud generalist and I like that. I like that I haven't specialized yet and I'm kind of throwing myself into these different industries and I think from each I'm just learning something new. So I feel like it's a bit further away. I'd love to just expose myself to different things. But I can take something along with me at each step. But it'll be cool to I guess work with AI more full on. Um, Controversial maybe. But I've been really enjoying an app called Wabi AI. Not sure if you've heard of it, but it's creating mini apps on your mobile. And I just use it for personal fun, but just watching the design and interactions of that. They also have a community. I thought that was really cool, and I wonder what it's like designing for a team like that.
Um, we have to jump into AI if for no other reason to see Chris's reaction as we descend into the hellscape of his imagination.
I'm
But
getting good at poker facing when AI comes up on a Zoom call. I'm like trying not to show my hatred too visibly. So let me know how I'm doing.
but before we do, like, I'm really interested what a mini app is. What's a mini app versus like the normal apps? I thought they were pretty mini to begin with, although some of them are a bit elaborate.
Tiny, tiny apps. Just vibe coded apps, but this is specifically for mobile. So I think there's multiple different apps, and I was trying to look at it. It's basically creating your own app store, like at your fingertips. Prompt it, and recently I made like my own financial tracker just because I've looked at all these different apps and products, and it just doesn't fit the structure of how I want to manage my finances. So then changed to Google spreadsheets, which worked great functionally, but it's still a bit mucky. Wanted something a bit nicer, went to Notion, but then their calculations also were just so hard, and I am on my phone most of the time, so I saw the app, and then I was like, oh great, I can actually create one, and I just give it a few prompts, and it works the exact way that I want it to work without having to go and buy or download another app. And you can essentially create anything.
Yeah, really interesting. I think we're going to see more and more like approaches like that and things. And this is a vaguely Atlassian adjacent podcast, although we don't mention it much considering that. But in where Chris and I were, did you come to Barcelona? It all blurs after a while. You were there, right? Yeah, you were there.
I was
We
there.
we
I
did a
don't think
recording.
Monica was. Yeah.
So, but the vibe coding with within the Atlassian platform feels like it's very much heading into that direction as well. And I wonder if that's where
Yeah.
we're going to see the vibe coding find its place, because I'm kind of inherently cynical about vibe coding creating entire apps and systems, at least on their own, or they require a lot of engineering as well as the vibe coding. But if you sort of have it within the constraint of like, here's a big, well-engineered, robust system. Now we're going to give you this playground and tools to vibe code through. That does feel like quite an interesting way to give the design tools back to the users.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that future.
And Kit, you say you don't mention Atlassian much, but you're definitely overcompensating with your background today. So.
Well, so this is a user problem, right? I can't work out how to turn off the fake background on Zoom, despite so I have to pick my fake background. So like for anyone that joins me normally, I have my very messy garage behind me, and on other platforms I enjoy that. But on Zoom I have to be artificial apparently. So there's something in the Zoom coding that I can't kill the cache on. I've even deleted
Nice.
the app. Like there is something stored in a preference somewhere. So. I think I'm going to have to take the approach like with bicycles and just buy a new laptop. Like the laptop is clearly the only thing I've got a place left to do it.
You talk about growing from a production designer to a strategic partner, and you alluded to it earlier, sort of how so much of your job is getting stakeholder management and buy-in and persuading people and getting feedback from people. So, yeah, like when did you realize and how are you adjusting to a world where it's not just about being the best designer possible?
Yeah, it's been such a change, and hopefully I've grown from it. But definitely talking to those mentors that I had, and looking just firsthand, even when I'm shadowing their work, that oh, it's not just about pretty pixels and all the decisions that need to be made behind those, and then all the conversations they're having with their product managers and engineering team. I love that all the workplaces I work closely with a product manager because they're kind of like your super sidekick, vice versa. And when you have a smooth sailing relationship with them, you both are aware of the problem and the why. Everything else becomes just so much easier. Um, but yeah, I still remember the days where I'll fixate on just the way something looks and feels. But then when working on a quick timeline, or we just don't have the luxury to spend a lot of time. Engineers are pumped under work, and you release something quickly, but still get the feedback that you need to then iterate on it, and it still solves a core problem for the users. That's when I was like, oh, okay. Uh, like first, I guess MVP or experimenting. Uh, just having a list of what's the most important thing. And then I like to just tell myself a design is never done, good and bad. It's design's never done. It's evolutionary. So it's okay. And if needed, we'll come back to it. But it's about solving the most crucial and important, I guess, job to be done that the users are trying to achieve. And most of the times, it's not solved by making something look pretty.
Chris was sharing some Mona Lisa AI related chat in our lead up to this show, and a famous problem with painting, and I think all forms of creativity is just knowing where to stop, which your last kind of statement really reminds me of. Like, have you found a secret to knowing where to stop and to like move on to another area?
Um, I think it depends on the project, but again, talking with the PM, understanding the goal, the bare minimum, the actual problem, and then talking to a few customers. If you can't, at least one's better than nothing. Getting that right feedback and forget about perfectionism. And before trying to perfect it, I would just go talk to the team. I like to bring the team along the journey. So if I'm doing some kind of research, I'll present that back so that the team also understands what's going on and what's coming up. So getting that team aligned, and then it makes the next session a bit easier where it's like, hey, I have an idea, I have a few designs. I want to walk through it with you. Give me your initial thoughts. And Easy Agile has likes to use this word like system two and system one thinking. So I would always just tell them like system two, sleep on it, and then give feedback. Because when I give kind of half finished, maybe like 80% finished designs earlier on, the constraints become much clearer from the engineering side and how they think about building it. And that way I can work with that instead of showing a full journey and fully thought out screen just for them to be like, that's not possible, or it's going to take a year or
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
So just have all those conversations earlier on and let go of, yeah, perfectionism.
I've heard Nick talk about the System 2 thing before. For those of us not indoctrinated into the easy agile brainwashing, like what's the? Could you go back over the? Oh, and I'm putting emojis on by mistake. Um, so for those of us not indoctrinated into the easy agile brainwashing, like what's this System 1 versus System 2 thing, and like where does it come from?
Yeah, super simplified. I don't think I use System 1 a lot, but System 2 is basically just getting the information and then process it and then come back with an answer after you've fully given thought about it, which is really helpful, especially in team meetings. And it's again different communication and learning styles with everyone. So sometimes when somebody asks me a question, but I just feel like I don't have enough information, I kind of
Mm.
stutter, right? I'm like, oh, like I feel like I need to give an answer right now, but I really want to think through it first. And system two is just a really nice, easy way to throw it out like, hey, let me system two and I'll get back to you. And it's in that culture. So I like that everyone, when needed, will think it through and gather the information they need to respond. So yeah, I love it.
It's the kind of technique I think would go down really badly in my home life if I was just like, let me System 2 that. I was gonna walk away. But I think in a business context, I can imagine. Like, I wish more people would say, don't give
One
me the answer right now.
one cannot system to a wife, in my experience.
I think spouse generally, Chris. I think it's a partnership thing, not a gender thing.
I don't. I've never had a husband. I can't split test that experiment.
Maybe that's a goal for
Only.
2026. Where we'll do like a comedy TV show where Chris kind of marries a man for the year, and we'll see whether his theories on human interrelationships work as well.
Speaking of accidental emojis, I had a brilliant moment. It was literally last week where I was consulting on the acquisition of a company. And there was this very earnest Eastern European gentleman who was trying to do like a Steve Jobs pose under his chin, like that. And then heart emojis started appearing on the Zoom call.
Oh, I
I
love it.
love that.
The way our language is evolving is a really fun one, isn't it? Have you guys seen that? The ones where the emoji's been admitted as contractual signature. Like if someone thumbs up, like then some of the
I,
time
I
that they
mean, for me it is, right? If I thumbs up a message in Slack, that means I'm doing it. So,
I love emojis.
But I'm not down with the kids enough. Apparently, Gen Alpha has different meanings to all of the emojis that we thought were our own, and now they've taken other meanings. So thumbs up, not the same depending on who you're communicating to.
So complex. I
And
can't
actually,
use my normal laughing face that I normally use, apparently. Now
it's
it's,
cringe, yeah.
yeah.
trying to vaguely bring it back to design on that note with things. So I guess talking about emojis and communication with users, how do you design for that breadth of audience? And I guess interestingly, easy agile now, and maybe even more so at the government. You've got quite a wedge of generations and vocabulary visually and textually, or whatever the right word is, grammatically around things there. How do you design with that in mind so that people don't get that mix of opinion of whether that's a positive or negative interaction or button or whatever it might be?
Ah, yeah. Oh. Is this from a perspective from people interacting with our products or
Yeah, I
internally?
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, it's really good that, we do have the Atlassian design system guidelines. So as best as possible, actually using text instead of single iconography to represent something. Same with a singular icon, having uh, complementary text to it so that it's super clear, but also just in general accessibility reasons, so text reader can go through that. But when we do give the agency to the users to say pick an emoji for retrospectives, we don't predetermine any. It's just kind of like your phone where you can select from anything. So anyone with different meanings or use cases for emojis, they can
But,
pick
but
whatever they want.
the library's getting so outdated though, isn't it? Like the skeuomorphism of the save icon on a floppy disk was out of date as it started coming in really, but there was a sense of nostalgia. But I recently saw that I think it was a Japanese student online being like, why is there a vending machine icon? They didn't understand what
Yeah.
the save floppy disk thing was. So why is it a vending machine to save my file?
Yes, floppy disks. I don't know. Maybe like a paperclip is one. I don't know if you've seen like Clippy, back in the days when Microsoft's I don't know. Yeah, that's also kind of gone, and it's all so different.
And also, I think as a new generation, so much of the Atlassian UX and UI, especially for add-on makers, is making things as close to Jira as possible. But that often traps things when things are trying to evolve, right, and move on. And so there's a tension there, and it's not just for younger users and younger generation, but for a new set of users. Atlassian grows into business teams, right, and new teams that weren't using the tools before. The UI and UX of business software has moved a lot in the last 10 years. And
Yes.
so if you're trying to drag people into what was popular 15 years ago with software developers, they're not going to have a fun onboarding experience.
No, there's so many new patterns, and I kind of saw it firsthand, like talking to my grandpa who's living in Japan, and he needs to. I think he just wanted to add a friend on the equivalent to a messenger app on his phone and just absolutely could not know how to navigate it and going on a video call with him and trying to describe the icon. And I was like, oh, I need to do this. I don't know how to do it in English, and then I have to translate it in Japanese, which is just so difficult. But yeah, it's also very eye-opening what they're used to in terms of patterns and kind of templates versus now, especially those AI tools as well. How to navigate that, very different patterns.
I found it quite interesting with my team's been amongst the first rolling out Loom at the company, and it's been quite interesting moving to a tool where the primary sort of verb is show me. It's instead of it being us trying to do that translation into text, me then message you and you translate it back into what you interpret the meaning as, just having something where visual communication is the first. And it feels such a weird revelation because I'm like, we're visual people, right? I draw things on whiteboards and stuff, but we haven't had that like show me approach within business software. To Chris's point, for like quite some time, if ever, around things, right? We've had to abstract things and then move them back. Yeah. Um, what else could we talk about with things? I mean, so we scratched the surface a little bit on the crazy AI thing. You said you were a fan, Monica, but like, uh, I guess first of all, just as a designer, like, how are you seeing it change how you work? Um, and I guess if we try and link it to our general theme of the podcast and what you were saying in terms of how you work with others, and you can split or combine those as you wish.
Yeah, I think my stance on AI is very neutral. It's a love-hate relationship, but I think it's just having the agency for yourself to see when it fits and when it's just faster, makes more sense doing it yourself. I've definitely had a lot of trial and errors using it for work. A great use case for me is actually we don't have a specialized content designer, and that's probably the least favorite part of my role when designing, trying to come up with explanations. I guess in the old days we'll come in a room to discuss, but now we can start off with not a blank page. Something's already I can just ask chat for ideas and then different tones, format, like lengths, etc. So for those kind of jobs, it's been super helpful. AI as a partner. I've learnt that it still has room for improvement when it comes to using AI collectively as a company. It's still very individual focused. So your chats are your chats. Maybe you can have an agent, but the chats within that is the same. But if you want to collectively bring our minds together and have AI to help us, I feel like we still need to be in a room together and on a laptop have some kind of ChatGPT or tool and screen share it so that we can see and brainstorm together. So trying to gather, all the context or research we've done in the past, surveys, collating it to brainstorm on new things, and sharing that within the company, I've found difficult, and it would be super powerful if we were to do that. Hopefully soon. I think it'll improve productivity and just yeah, navigating all the resources and documents we have scattered everywhere.
Awesome. I've got a list of our classic. They're almost, maybe we make them quick fire. Have we said they're quick fire before, Chris? Like we can do.
No, let's give it a go.
Let's make it a quick fire thing generally. Monica, what's the design hill you're ready to die on?
Doesn't have to be perfect. I think it comes back to my perfection. I think just as a character, I'm a perfectionist, so letting go of that.
Very good. What's something about design that people get wrong far too often?
80% is communicating and aligning, and 20 is actually designing and with your tools.
Not make it pretty, Chris. Don't make it pretty. Aaron, thanks. Okay. Um, a ritual, mantra, process, kind of tip that you think everyone should know about.
Reflecting, and I know this is very broad, but reflect with your team, longer term, shorter term, which is kind of fits in the broader scheme of communication and alignment. Just teamwork in general. If there was one tip, just reflect with your team and talk to them, and we can do more of that.
And last one on my list, what's your most controversial opinion about cross-functional work? So getting all of those different disciplines together.
I think there is such a thing as over communicating, which is, I feel like, going against what I just said about communicate more, but
Communicate more, but not too
um,
much.
not too much. Just even with questions and what you're communicating, and just think it through, or think it with through with the team. But I think sometimes we might think that because we're talking for an hour in a meeting that it's productive. But what are the actual kind of goals and items that come through that? Um, yeah, just nailing the right thing to talk about.
From a non-designer's perspective, what do you think people often get wrong when working with designers that makes the collaboration less effective?
We're thinking more broadly. It's not just about how it looks and interacts, but I feel like the work we do is so much more beyond like being the champion for the customers, understanding the business context as well. Maybe doing the competitor analysis, you kind of know that landscape of the market. So with all that knowledge combined, yes, the design is kind of the final artifact that we create, but we can have discussions beyond that to I guess like impact strategy as well. Knowing to talk to devs, fighting for a better experience for the users. But I think it's a misconception. Maybe they just think it's just pure making things look pretty and work, but we can discuss
I,
more.
I did, and I've definitely been schooled several times over the last few episodes. So, Monica, thank you very much for the education. I really appreciate it.
I said this is at least partly a journey of Chris becoming a designer very, very slowly. By the end, he'll be creating all sorts of. He'll be making things pretty by the end of season 2, right, Chris?
I'll be drawing stickmen or women.
Stick people. But the interesting thing about the stick person is that it's kind of the perfect design, right? Like it's done. Once you do it,
Yeah.
it gets the intended purpose across.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like I don't like making things pretty, but trust me, I do. I love making things pretty.
Yes, but that's the instinct. This is what I often find. Like I'll be arguing with someone, and I realize that they support more my devil's advocate perspective than they do. It's just they're thinking out loud and trying to fight against their instincts, which are pushing
Yeah.
them too far the other way. So
Oh,
there's a
100%.
Goldilocks zone, right? And there's communication, but it needs to be communication with a plan and a purpose, and that clearly communicated as well. So.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, you're making things pretty point reminded me, Monica. Like, is there like a single thing that you've designed and or made at some point where you're like, yeah, that was epic. Like, I'm really proud of that.
Ooh. Um, I actually think it was a very small like pop-up card. It's super small within the app, but that was the one where I kind of went all haywire, animated it, made a little kind of mascot, but it was also the one the team enjoyed the most working on it as well. Like just the excitement of, oh, this is something new. We haven't tried this. And even if it doesn't land, like we'll still have some learnings from it. And I think also from a development and learning perspective for the engineers, it's something a bit creative as well, and not just a static screen. So I love that. It was such a small piece, but it holds a lot of memory.
Nice. Oh,
Really good. I feel like that might draw things to a close fairly naturally,
beautifully. Happily.
beautifully.
Thank you very much
There
for
we
your
go.
time, guys. It's wonderful.
No, thank you. Hopefully there's some good snippets in there.
Oh,
Hopefully,
definitely.
we'll find out it's entirely recorded the birds outside my house after you said that thing, maybe, or something like that.